In the last few years, we've seen a resurgence in good Spider-Man content. Consistently good films, the best video games to date, the best TVs, and a bright future with lots of exciting projects. Life is good, but it can be better. You see, there's one problem with the Marvel-Sony deal. Despite Marvel having control over the big films, Sony are continuing to milk other characters from the Spider-Man universe, albeit outside the MCU. Look, a deal's a deal, Sony's gotta make movies, but do you guys remember when they did this? I see you, Sony, trying to bait us with Raimiverse. Also, remember when they cut Vulture out the movie, despite appearing in trailers just 1 month before the movie? There's lots of rumours flying around about the Madam Web film, and in theory, a connection to Raimiverse is exciting. Sony are within their rights to use it. Except, Sony suck at making superhero films. I want to clarify, I'm not saying Sony can't make good films. We're talking specifically about the superhero genre. Obviously, this wasn't always the case, but studio interference became apparent as early as this, and it's been downhill ever since. I do believe there are good movies buried within the Amazing Spider-Man dilogy. However, they were undeniably bogged down by Sony's desperate attempt at building a cinematic universe. Speaking of The Amazing Spider-Man, where's the Amazing Spider-Man 3? Where is it? Where is it? Would I like to see him return?
Let me check. Yes.
But here's the issue. This is the same studio that fucked these films the first time round. What makes you think they do better this time? Sony hasn't changed one bit since 2015. They're still desperately building a cinematic universe, trying to stay relevant, and somehow making even worse Spider-Man movies than before. The whole point of a cinematic universe is giving audiences a reason to anticipate the next installment. Who the fuck walked out of Morbius and wanted more? Now, I'll admit, there's some fun to be had with these movies. I didn't have an awful time with Venom 1 or 2, but they're painfully generic, poorly written, and worst of all, soulless. I'm convinced the script for Morbius was AI generated. You know, I'm gonna give some credit to Warner Bros. Another awful studio. They've tried new things. The Batman, Joker, Peacemaker, The Suicide Squad. These projects show that a bit of faith in your audience can go a long way. Even Fox recognized this. Sony had an opportunity to try something new and interesting with these characters, without the limitations of the MCU. So what did they do? They made subpar movies in hopes of crossing over with the MCU. Kind of funny how the state of these movies made a crossover even less likely. Can you blame Kevin for not wanting these on his MCU timeline? I mean, technically one of them is, but that was just so Marvel could steal Venom from Sony. Though in retaliation, we did lose Vulture. It's frustrating because there was so much potential here, but come on. Let's take a step back. Sony knows why we watch these movies. For the end credits scene, baby! I've seen good end credit scenes, I've seen underwhelming end credit scenes, but never has a credit scene actually fucked me off. There's already videos discussing why it's so awful, but the part that I find most offensive is Vulture's line about doing some good.
Team up, could do some good. Intriguing.
Fuck off, Sony. Quick recap, there's now 3 villains in Sony's Spider-Man universe, except none of them are villains. Morbius is not a villain. Venom is basically a hero, more so in Venom 2. And then there's Vulture, who I guess he's good now? What the f***? I know he wasn't evil in Homecoming, but why does he suddenly want to do some good? Let's be real, we all know Sony are building up to Sinister Six. They've been trying to do it since 2013. Here's the thing though, who wants to see this lot team up to do some good instead of, I don't know, doing the one thing we want to see them do? Sure, there's potential for a fun, original story featuring 6 wacky characters, except what have we been talking about for the last hour and a half? They've not given us any reason to want this film, not to mention them going on—
But what about Into the Spider-Verse, you silly cunt?
Ah yes, Sony's get out jail free card. Firstly, Sony Pictures Animation, different studio. The animation studio were pulled in fresh off the Emoji Movie and said go nuts, a shocking lack of studio interference. And what was the result of this? Sony Pictures Animation decided to produce a fucking banger. This might be my most rewatched film of all time. Sony, for the love of God, leave the sequels alone. I know, you were surprised by the popularity of the first film, but that is purely because of your minimal involvement, so please. Back the fuck off! But enough about the past. Let's see what else Sony has in store for us. Fuck me, this rivals the DCU's wiki page. Anyone else excited for Sony to make Kraven a complete pussy? Madam Web, another film that's happening. Ooh, is it Raimi-verse? Is it Web-verse? We gotta find out, boys. 10 tickets, please. And last but definitely not least, finally, after years of waiting, I wonder if they'll have J.K. Simmons in the trailer, only to be cut before the film's release. These are the projects you probably know about. What you may not know is there are many other films and TV shows in development, so I thought it'd be fun to rank them by the likelihood of actually being made. Okay, so we have the tier list here. I included Big Wheel as a joke, but for some reason he's appeared twice, so I'm just gonna go ahead and put Big Wheel at the very top, double our chances. But let's move on to the projects that are actually in development. So, Sinister Six. Sony's been planning to do this since the Amazing Spider-Man days. Apparently they were gonna have an Amazing Spider-Man shared universe. That was very optimistic. It even had a confirmed director, Drew Goddard, confirmed to be directing in April 2014. But obviously then, 2015, the Amazing Spider-Man shared universe came to an abrupt end. But then, jump forward to 2018 and Amy Pascal is saying that apparently the film is alive, following the success of Venom, and she still wants Drew Goddard to direct it, which I'm like, does he still want to do it? Probably sounded great back in the day, but then they saw how completely fucking incompetent Sony is and thought, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and not do that. It does sadden me to admit that the film is probably going to happen, just because they've been trying to do it for years, and despite the reception to Venom and Morbius, they still seem dead set on this path, and to be honest, I almost just want them to get it over and done with. We all know it's going to be shit, but at least that way, if they try and fail, then maybe they will just give up. That's being very optimistic. The thing is, after No Way Home, I feel like I have like a taste of what it would be like to not just have the six, but for it to be done well. So I'm kind of content with what we've already seen, but it's probably going to happen, and I'm probably going to go and watch it because I'm part of the problem. Moving on to Aunt May, I am not joking. In 2018, there was talks of a spin-off from the MCU or possibly an animated Spider-Verse film starring Aunt May, which Sony previously referred to as silly. So fucking El Muerto gets the pass, but Aunt May doesn't. Look, if Sony themselves think this is silly, then yeah, we can just go ahead and slap Aunt May into the not happening section. Because honestly, all these projects are pretty dumb, but if Sony themselves are saying that it's dumb, then it is not gonna happen. Next up, Silver and Black. Sony actually cancelled its female team-up film way back in August 2018, and it was meant to be reworked as two separate films, but later on down the line, that was cancelled as well, and it's been reworked as a limited series, which was confirmed in April of 2020. The thing is, I can see potential for this series, but I feel like Sony just don't care about this one. Like, there's been so little news about it, and it's been 2.5 years since the last update, so I'm gonna go ahead and slap this into unlikely. I'm not gonna rule it out completely. I believe that someday there will be some version of this, whether it is a limited series or if they go back to their original idea of it being a film. I don't think a limited series is a terrible idea. Spider-Man movies aren't working out clearly, but maybe they do better with a series. There's only really one way to find out, which is if they just do it. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Okay, moving on to Jackpot. So they've been trying to make this movie happen since 2018. They got the guy who writes the Jackpot comic books to actually write the screenplay for Jackpot, and that was in May of 2020, so not too long ago. Apparently Mark Guggenheim had actually been working on the film for 2 years already, so it does sound like a surprising amount of work has gone into this film, but since we've heard nothing about it, I can't really put it any higher than maybe. I don't really have anything else to say about this one, so let's just move on. Back in 2017, Sony were considering a film about Mysterio. If this were being filmed back in 2018, I would have put it straight into not happening. Mysterio was part of the MCU, figured it wouldn't make sense to have a spin-off film about Mysterio if it's not part of the MCU. But since Sony stole Vulture from MCU, honestly, it could technically happen, but I do think it's incredibly unlikely. Even if Jake does return to play the role in Sony's Spider-Man universe, I feel like he would only return as part of the Sinister Six, so I guess it's not impossible, but I'm going to go ahead and put it in unlikely. Honestly, I hope this film doesn't happen. It just sounds really stinky coming from Sony. Next up is Night Watch. This apparently began development in 2017. They had a script, they wanted Spike Lee to direct it, who later confirmed he was interested. But apparently there was a complete rewrite of the script, meaning Lee dropped out the project in 2018. You know where this one's going, guys. It's just like, come on. Next up, Untitled Olivia Wilde project. So in August 2020, Olivia Wilde signed on to produce a female-centric Marvel film alongside her writing partner Katie Silberman. The film is apparently about Spider-Woman, and it's been high priority since 2020. I'm a bit torn on this one because films can take a long time to make, but it is a bit weird that we've not heard anything for 2.5 years. That said, the fact that this has been in works since 2020 makes me think that it could happen. I feel like the projects that were greenlit in 2017, 2018, I feel like those are just dead in the water. But 2020 wasn't that long ago, and I feel like it's feasible that this could still be in works. I'd quite like to see a Spider-Woman film. It's a shame that it's going to be made by Sony, but I'm going to go ahead and put this in maybe. I feel like it could happen. Maybe. In March 2020, Sony hired a co-writer from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, oh no, to write a script for an untitled Marvel film. Interestingly, this film is meant to be set in Sony's shared universe, but it's not going to be about a Spider-Man character. Apparently they want to explore other characters which Sony also have access to. I mean, sure guys, make the most of it, you know, it's only a matter of time before Marvel claims them all back. This is a weird one, Guys, I know this film has its fans, but Sony themselves know that this film didn't do well, so it's a bit strange that they'd get a co-writer for this movie to make another film. I'm not saying Roberto's a bad writer. We all know that it was Sony's interference with the film that made The Amazing Spider-Man 2 the film that it is. But I'm surprised he wants to do this, after being mucked around a lot during his time on The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't know, this one's kind of weird. I don't hate the idea of Sony branching out to other Marvel characters they own, but if we're being real, they know Spider-Man generally brings in the big bucks, and considering how poorly Morbius performed, I feel like they're not going to want to take the risk and venture outside Spider-Man territory, so I'm going to put it in unlikely for now. I can see them wanting to do this someday, but I feel like their priority now is just making that shitty Sinister Six movie. Last but not least, we have Silk. This is another TV series that's apparently in works. Interestingly, this one is set in the MCU. They want Tiffany Espenson to reprise her role from Spider-Man Homecoming to play Silk.
The second law of thermodynamics.
Honestly, of all the projects we've discussed, I think this one is the most interesting. Silk's a really cool character. The MCU implications are interesting. Amazon Prime Video is in talks to distribute the series. That makes me somewhat optimistic because Amazon have a pretty good track record with superhero properties. Honestly, from what I've read, this one feels like it might actually be happening, and I'm almost a little bit excited for it. I feel like with a good team and being distributed by Amazon Prime, there's potential for this to be good, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it next to Big Wheel. And that's that. So yeah, that's everything we have to look forward to. Watch out, Marvel!